In this lecture, we are going to create a new project in Android Studio and teach you about navigation drawers. The navigation drawer that we are going to create from the beginning in this section is like the one in this picture. As you can see, at the header part of the navigation drawer, we see an image view and two text views, with the first text view showing the user name and the second one showing his email address. Below the header, we see the navigation drawer, where there are a couple of items defined. For example, inbox, starred, sent mail, drafts, all mail, trash, and spam. Okay, now let's go implement this navigation drawer from scratch. To do this, I open Android Studio. To create a new project, click on Start a new Android Studio project. In the application name section, we select a name for our project. For example, navigation drawer. And our project is stored in the Material Design Projects folder. I click on Next and set the minimum SDK to API 15 or Android 4. I click on Next. In this list, you can select Navigation Drawer Activity. In this case, by selecting the Navigation Drawer activity, Android Studio will create a default navigation drawer for us, which we can then customize as desired. But as we are going to create a navigation drawer from scratch, I'm going to select Empty Activity. I click on Next, and here you can change the activity name and layout name as well. I leave these unchanged and click on Finish and wait for Android Studio to create my project. Alright, our project was created. In order to create a navigation drawer, we must first add the design library to our project. To do this, I go to the File menu and select Project Structure. Under Modules, I select App. Then I go to the Dependencies section. I click on the plus sign and then Library Dependency, and then I select the design library to add to my project. So make sure that the AppCompat and design libraries have been added to this list. I click on OK and wait for Android Studio to add the design library to my project. Alright, our project was compiled automatically and the design library was successfully added to the project. After we added the design library to the project, we must now create a toolbar. In the previous section, I discussed toolbars in detail. Next, I go to Resources and then Values folder and open styles.xml. Now I change my theme's parent to theme.appcompat.lite.noActionBar. This removes Android's default toolbar from my application. Next, I go to the Layout folder and open ActivityMain.xml. I go to the Text section and get rid of the default paddings created by Android Studio. I don't need this context, so I remove it, and also the text view is redundant. This line also has to be removed. To create a toolbar in my relative layout, I type android.support.v7.widget.toolbar. Now my toolbar requires a height and a width. I set its width to match parent, and I set its height to the action bar size attribute. Now I define an ID for my toolbar, @ID/toolbar. After ID, I define a background for my toolbar, and I set its value to the color primary attribute. I also define a style for my toolbar. App: and I import app using alt and return. Theme equals @style/theme overlay.appcompat.dark.actionbar. And I close my toolbar with /. Now I close the activity main layout and open main activity class. Inside the main activity class, I'm going to create an object from the toolbar class. I name it toolbar with small t and semicolon. Now inside the onCreate method, I create its connection. I type toolbar equals, inside the parentheses I type toolbar to cast the result to toolbar type, then find view by ID, r.id.toolbar, and I close my statement with semicolon. Also, I use the setSupportActionBar method and turn my toolbar into an action bar. So far, we were able to add a toolbar to our project. Now I want to change my toolbar's color. Inside the values folder, I open colors.xml. I'm going to remove the code for color primary and select a color from the material colors. For example, the blue color. I copy the code for 500. Then I return to Android Studio and paste the code inside the color primary tag. In addition to this, I also change the color for color primary dark. I remove its code, return to material colors, and select the code for the blue color 700. I copy the code and return to Android Studio and paste it inside the color primary dark tag. So we changed the colors for color primary and color primary dark. Now let's run the project we have so far on the emulator for Nexus 6. Alright, our project was run, and here we see our toolbar. I stop my emulator and I close the colors.xml file. To create a navigation drawer, we must create a layout for it. To do this, I right-click on the layout folder and then select New Layout Resource File. You see that the new resource file window opens. In the file name section, I enter a name for my layout. For example, I type navigation_drawer. And I click on OK and close the window. Alright, my new layout was created. Now I go to the text section. Now inside the layout, I'm going to remove linear layout completely. As we are going to create a navigation drawer, we define our navigation drawer to be of the drawer layout type. I type android.support.v4.widget.drawer layout. And I close my drawer layout completely. Alright, our drawer layout requires a height and a width, and in the preview section, I set its width and height to match parent. After width and height, I'm going to define an ID for my drawer layout. @ID / drawer _ layout. After ID, I type Android : fit system Windows, and I set its value to true. This means that my drawer layout will have the same size as my activity. Now inside the drawer layout, I'm going to define a navigation view from the design library. I type android.support.design.widget.navigation view. Now we define a height and a width for our navigation view. I'm going to set its width to wrap content, which means that the width of my navigation view will be equal to the width of my content. I set its height to match parent. Okay, after height and width, I'm going to define an ID for my navigation view. @ID / navigation _ view. After ID, I'm going to define a gravity for my navigation view. I type Android : layout _ gravity equals start. This means that my navigation view will be positioned to the left side of my activity. After gravity, I define the fit system Windows attribute as well, and I set its value to true. Now I close my navigation view. So far, we added a drawer layout and a navigation view to our layout. The next thing we are going to do is to set this layout as the default layout for our activity. This means that when the application is run, instead of the activity main layout, the navigation drawer layout will be loaded. Okay, now I close my layout and open the main activity class. Now inside the onCreate method, I'm going to change the parameter for the setContentView method to r.layout.navigationDrawer. Once again, I return to my navigation drawer layout And now I must include the activity main layout here. Before navigation view, I open an include tag and I type include layout equals @layout slash activity underscore main. And I close my include tag with slash. For now, we are done with the navigation drawer layout, so I close it. Now it's time to create a layout for our navigation drawer's header. To do this, I right-click on the layout folder and select New Layout Resource File. Okay, now I name my header layout file name navigation underscore header. And I click on OK. Now I go to the text section. You see that the height of our navigation header is set to match parent. Usually, the height for navigation drawers headers is defined between 160 and 180 dp. So I change the height of my linear layout to 160 dp. Now I type Android:padding equals 16 dp, which means my header will have a padding of 16 dp. After padding, I define a gravity for my header too. I type Android:gravity equals, from the list that appears, I select bottom, which means that my components will be placed at the bottom of my header layout. I also define a theme for my layout. I type Android:theme equals @style/theme overlay .appcompat.dark. Pay attention to capital and small letters when typing. Now we need a background for our header layout. I have already downloaded an image from the internet. I go to Downloads and copy the image that I have downloaded. I return to Android Studio and paste it inside the drawable folder. And here is the picture. After the theme, I define the background attribute, and for its value, I type @drawable/header. Of course, you can select any picture that you want, as long as you have already added the picture inside the drawable folder. Now I'm going to add an image view inside my linear layout. I'm going to set its width and height to 56 dp. After width and height, I define the source attribute. So I type Android:src equals. Now I'm going to add a picture for my image view. Again, I go to the downloads folder and copy this image. Then I go back to Android Studio and paste it inside the drawable folder. Yes, this is our picture. So now for the source attribute, I type @drawable/John. Okay, after the Android source attribute, I'm going to introduce you to another attribute named scale type. I type Android:scale type. From the list of available values for this attribute, I'm going to select the center crop value, which scales the image uniformly to the view. You see that Android Studio is showing a warning here, which is because we have not defined a content description for our image view. So I define a content description for my image view. I type Android:content description. For its value, I type an arbitrary text, for example, my image, and then I extract the string resource by pressing Alt and return. You see that the warning for the image view is now gone. Okay, that's it for my image view. Now I'm going to define two text views as well. I create my first text view and set its width and height to wrap content. I also add a text for the text view. For example, I type John Doe. Then I hit Alt and return, extract string resource, and OK. Now you see that my text view is displayed under the image view. I'm going to give a padding from the top to my text view. I type Android: padding top. For its value, I type, for example, 8 dp. Okay, that's it for our text view padding. Now I'm going to add an appearance attribute to it as well. I type Android: text appearance equals, for its value I type @style / text appearance dot appcompat dot body1. Okay, we are done with the first text view, and now I define another text view. I set its width and height to wrap content. I add a text for the second text view. For example, I enter an imaginary email address. Example @gmail.com. I press Alt and return, extract string resource, and OK. You see that our second text view is displayed under our first one. I also define a padding from the top for my second text view. I type Android: padding top, and I set its value to, for example, 4 dp. And that's it for my second text view. Okay, our work with the header layout of our navigation drawer is finished. So far, we set the height for this layout to 160 dp and also defined a padding for it, as well as a background, an image view, and 2 text views. That's it for this lecture. In the next lecture, we'll add menu to our navigation drawer and add more features to it step by step.